I'm Tony Montana, a political prisoner from Cuba. Something? Hey, you can send me anywhere. Here, there, this, that. It don't matter. There's nothing you can do to me that Castro has not already done.
Everyone's got equally nothing, so everyone kind of comes together.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's the darkish side of Cuba, which is the political side, which I'm particularly invested in. But,
Gotcha.
of course, that side is the communist regime and everything that it has robbed its people of.
Yeah.
And so that's the darker side that tourists don't get to see, which I think is a good thing and a bad thing.
Right.
On the one hand, I don't think that any Cuban wants, obviously we want people to know the struggle, but on the other hand, it's kind of like you never want people to see the worst in your country and then leave, thinking that it's a terrible place.
And just thinking about the amount of tourists and the quality of tourism that Cuba has, you would think that the infrastructure of the country would be better, meaning that making it easier for the residents of the island and the islanders.
Yeah.
So I think just looking at those perspective of where you have this amazing thing, but then you see the money that is being brought out by tourism and it's not being reinvested into the country, it's not being reinvested into the people.
Right.
Which is kind of just the crappy part of Cuba, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, Cuba is historically the example, like picture perfect example of wasted potential. So I think for us, in our family, pretty much everyone had migrated by the time that we came, except for like the two of us, our parents, and one of our grandmothers, our paternal grandmother.
Okay.
So I guess in the back of our minds, we always knew that was the end goal because our whole family was already here.
Already there,
so it was the next logical step.
Right.
But I would say that it really solidified and the process really got, kicked off and started when I was about 7 and he was about 8.
I think, and I'll always defend this and I always say this, that as a child, growing up in Cuba was probably the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah.
As an adult, it's just the complete
Right.
different
You
thing.
get into the flow of work, maybe, and yeah.
Yeah. So as a child, you literally wake up, you play outside the entire day.
Right.
There's no phones, nothing like that ties you to the inside of the house. So you
Yeah.
literally wake up, all your friends are in the block. So you
Yeah.
guys are literally just running around. So it's just like the typical kid stuff that I would always say that growing up in Cuba as a kid was probably one of the best things that ever happened to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
On the flip side of that,
Yeah.
as an adult, there's not much for prosperity.
Right.
There's a limit on how much you can do with your life. Especially us coming from a very small town, people end up being stuck there for the rest of their life. There's no room for improvement.
Gotcha.
Even if you go to college, you go study, you do everything that you're supposed to do,
Yeah.
at the end you will be stuck in that small town making next to nothing,
Right.
starving to death.
You want to tell them about your flirtation with communism?
No,
Yeah.
I do not.
My brother was a leader of we would do little assemblies every morning
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
pledge your allegiance to the government and not the country, the government.
Oh.
And sing the national anthem. Then you would talk about students who have excelled, maybe recite a little poem. And there was always like one kid that did the leadership. But I mean, it was essentially, it's part of the indoctrination, right? So the process of getting kids really excited because you get to stand up there and you don't realize that you are essentially, feeding into this communist machine. So like maybe 2 or 3 weeks before we even left the country, my brother got it. He barely met the age limit, and he got it. And he would stand there and do his little pledge of allegiance. And my mom was like, "Watch us not be able to leave the country because they're gonna think the kid is a communist."
Yeah.
So he had a very important role. I was too young.
Right.
Growing in Cuba, your neighbor is your family, and then moving to the United States, and that was such a big cultural shock.
Yeah.
Not knowing your neighbor, not knowing their name, not being able to have that connection where you can just come in and out of the house and stuff like that.
Right.
I think that's something that we crave a lot
Yeah.
as Cubans, especially coming from a very small town.
Yeah.
And I think that's just the thing that I miss the most. That family environment, that community sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the thing that I miss the most personally.
Yeah. So like I mentioned earlier, I guess when you are in the situation that our people, I guess, are in, you kind of bond together and you come together.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely the community and the we're also from a very small town. Like
Yeah.
everyone knows everyone.
Yeah.
So I guess that does help you bond with people that in a way that maybe it's just a little bit more difficult. In such a large city with such or a large country with such a fast pace.
Yeah.
I mean, in 11 years, my brother and I have been back once for a weekend.
Oh wow.
Like 6 years in, we went
Wow.
back to Cuba for a weekend, and we haven't come back since.
Wow. What did you hear about America in Cuba?
I think even from a very small age, the picture that is painted about America and about the United States in Cuba is completely different.
Okay.
You know, to Cubans, or at least the way the government makes it seems, is that America is the enemy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
At some point, they're just trying to take advantage of you.
Yeah.
Don't trust them. The reason why our island is like this, our country is like this, our economy is like this, because of them.
Yeah.
And you get fed that at a very young age.
Right.
You know, starting elementary, pre-K as well.
Yeah.
They're constantly showing cartoons that are anti-American and showing you that negative side to it.
So is everybody that's even active in the community in Cuba, they're all kind of against it?
Actually, no. Actually, and it's
No.
that you get fed that in school because at the end of the day, teachers have to. Because, you know, the government has a lot of pull and a lot of power. But the actual people, they think the complete opposite
It's
of them.
kind of like you know better.
Yeah,
right?
you
So
know
yeah.
what's being fed to you is not okay. And it's not right.
Gotcha.
And that's just, it makes us turn against the government. It just comes to like media control and censorship.
Yeah.
It makes us turn against the government. It makes us not trust our government, or it doesn't make it makes us not trust the island.
Yeah, I mean,
So it's just a lot that goes into it.
I think as a kid, again, it's the indoctrination thing that we keep. Once you've seen one dictatorship, you've seen them all. They're all the same. They try to indoctrinate you as kids, you know, and they teach you the United States is an imperialist power, and the imperialist power is the enemy, and they are the cause of pretty much all of evil ever existed.
Gotcha.
But you know, like, yes, okay, your teachers are telling you this and you're seeing this in school, but then you go home to a family like ours, who we are seeing different. We are seeing with our own eyes, like, our family is actually making something of themselves in a different country, and they are helping us survive in this, like, country that we live in.
Right.
And so maybe you're not like, your family members are not in the United States, but you certainly, maybe a neighbor or somebody that you know of is there, and you're seeing that it's not the truth.